Hello and welcome back to A Different Life. In today's video we're going to look at a fairly large ship entering a canal, it's a fairly small canal, the Caledonian Canal, which is has an entrance at Corpac in Scotland. A 60-mile canal that was formally opened in 1822 runs right across Scotland from Corpac near Fort William to Inverness. And today we're going to look at a fairly big cruise ship, about as big a ship as you could get through this canal. And we're going to watch it enter the canal and enter the first lock, and then rise up in level and motor out of that first lock. It always amazes me when I see this ship going through the canal, which I've seen several times, because the thing looks huge. It looks too big for the canal, but it does actually fit in. Although I don't envy the captain having to steer it into that situation, particularly on windy days when it's, you know, when there's currents and wind and the boat's getting blown about a bit, even a big boat like that. And I have seen accidents happen in the past in that situation. So without any further ado, we're going to get into this and watch this ship enter the canal, and then once it's in the first lock we'll see the water level rise, and then the gates open, and watch it motor out into the first canal basin, as it were, which lies after the lock. So here we go. So you've just watched the ship come into the lock, and it's still moving forward a little bit right now, and you can see the water is now pouring into the lock in order to raise the level of the ship to be such that it can motor into the next stage of the canal basin, which lies immediately after the lock. As I say, the ship is huge. As you can see, there's very little gap. There's only about maybe half a metre or a couple of feet on either side of the ship, if that, between the ship and the stone walls that confine the canal. They brought it in, as you've just seen, and they've tied the ship up, and now the gates are closed at the seaward end of the lock, and the water is pouring into that lock in order to rise the level of the ship up to the point where the gates can be opened and it will motor out. You can already see that the decks are well above the level of the surrounding ground, whereas when it first came in the decks were if anything below that level. And there's still, right now you can see some water still pouring into the lock. We're almost full. But once it gets full, those gates that you can see the small waterfall from will open, and the walkway above the gates will open up too with that, and that will allow the ship to motor through into the basin. So what we're seeing now, you can see the ship's risen up quite a bit in level. It's almost ready for the gates to open, but this canal, you know, once the ship goes another mile or so up the canal, there's a world famous series of locks called Neptune's Ladder or Neptune's Staircase, where there's 11 of these locks consecutively linked, and the vessels that go through or come down these locks change level by, I don't know the exact number, but it's got to be at least 50 to 100 feet. It's quite a spectacular series of locks, and is well worth a visit if anybody's in this part of the world. This cruiser will, I don't know where it goes, but it probably heads up to Inverness and takes people on a cruise through the Great Glen, which is the massive glen that connects Fort William to Inverness. It's actually, in geological terms, it's a fault line that separates two areas of the Highlands of Scotland, and from a vessel traffic point of view, it links the west coast of the UK or the west coast of Scotland to the North Sea. So vessel traffic that's heading to Denmark, Scandinavia or whatever will come up and go through this canal system if the vessels are small enough to fit, in order to avoid going all the way around the northern tip of Scotland and the heavy seas and currents that prevail in that part of Scotland. Right now you're witnessing the ship exit the first lock and motor its way into the canal basin. Once it gets into that basin, the gates will get closed again, and that opens up the lock for further marine traffic to come through as and when required. So the gates are now open, and as you can see, the ship is moving forward through the open gate to the higher level of the first canal basin. I think it's going to dock once it gets through there, but you can see how big a ship this is compared to the canal, and you can see the double fenders on either side, so fenders to protect the ship when the water level's low and fenders to protect the sides of the ship when the water level's high. Right now it's exiting the lock, and once that process is complete, in a minute or two they'll close the gates and open up the walkway across the gates again, and that's it. The ship's through and into the canal system formally. A final look at the ship coming through that gate. It just amazes me that this thing fits through there, and as I mentioned earlier, I'd hate to be the captain and have to steer it through there, because it must be murder to avoid bumping the sides, etc., etc. Although they do have thrusters and controls to move the ship sideways as and when required. You can see one of these thrusters in action right now. That white frothy water, that's a jet of water coming out below the hull that forces the boat to the side, and hence avoids the boat scraping along the side of the stone embankment to the canal. So that's it. The boat has come out of the canal, the first lock, and it's heading to dock on the side here, as you can see. Big ship, small canal, incredible feat of engineering, and again, this canal, it took several years to build. I think 1806 to 1822 when it was finally opened. Massive undertaking to build a canal system over 60 miles, although there are 3 locks in the process that are linked to that boats can sail up. So we're going to end the video now with a final glimpse of the ship entering this lock, and a clear vision of how narrow the canal is for such a big ship. I want to thank you all for watching this far, and click like and subscribe if you feel inclined to support the channel. Thanks very much, and have a good one.